The most powerful decision we make, and most of us don't make it consciously, is what are we going to focus on? We don't focus on everything. We focus on a small number of things, and that's what we experience in life. Because you could be focusing right now on the blood rushing through your left ear or the touch of your clothes against your skin, but you don't. Most of what your brain does is distort, delete, and generalize to make life simple. And the problem is when you distort, delete, and generalize, you miss a lot of your life. And focus, write down, equals feeling. Whatever you focus on, you're gonna feel, even if it's not true. If I asked you, there are two things you could focus on, what you have or what's missing. Which one do you spend more time focusing on? If your brain is constantly focusing on what's missing, how can you ever sustain happiness no matter how successful you become? It is impossible. What happens when you focus on what you have? You feel alive, you feel no scarcity, you feel joy. How many of you have lots of things in your life that if you focused on it, you could feel grateful for, you could feel excited about? How many got lots of things like this now? Say I. But it doesn't exist unless you focus on it. And we all have patterns of focus. Do you tend to focus more on what you can control or what you can't control, what's outside your control? What is someone gonna feel who's constantly focused on what's missing and what they can't control? Sad, frustrated, angry, depressed? So why are they still depressed? Because they're still focusing on what's missing. And they're focused on what they can't control. And I'll add one more. Do you tend to focus more on things from the past, the present, or the future? We all do all three, but if you're gonna spend your predominant time and you want enjoyment, it's the present. If you want to create a great life, it's the future. So it's a balance between the present and future.
Focus on who you are serving instead of who you're not. That one sentence is at the core of how I've been able to stay so consistent, to keep making content, to not give up, to not get too discouraged, and to get back up every single time and keep going, because I focus on who I am serving instead of who I'm not. I just recently spoke at Brendan Burchard's Influencer Summit, and I shared my graphic of how I've grown over the years on my channel. Every time I show that graph, they always ask me, how did you keep going? In the first 5 years, when you had no subscribers, when you had no comments, how did you keep going? And how did you make so many videos? How did you not burn out? How have you made 12,000 videos over 12 years? How do you keep doing it? And I don't think I'm superhuman. I don't think I'm extra special. I think I had actually more problems than most. I'm shy, I'm introverted. I was afraid of the camera. I felt like only egotistical people put themselves on camera and told their story. I had lots of limiting beliefs and struggles in getting my channel and just belief in myself to put anything out there. I hated my first 350 videos. I couldn't watch anything back. Totally embarrassed by everything I made. And it was 750 videos before I inspired myself, before I finally liked one of my own videos. Like, you know what? I'm starting to get decent at this. That was a good video. 750 videos in before I did that. So how do you keep going? How does that make any sense? Because I always focus on who I was serving instead of who I wasn't. Most of us just focus on who we're not serving. Think about your growth. Think about if you've made any kind of content. You know, at the beginning, you get nothing, right? There's no reaction, there's no comments, and then maybe you get one comment, and then maybe you get 5 comments, or maybe you get 10 likes, or maybe you get however many views on your videos, right? You get 100 views on your video. Now that's kind of the standard. Now if you get 20 views again on a video, ooh, that doesn't feel so good, right? Or if you get 1,000 views on a video, or 10,000 views on a video, or 100,000 views on a video. I remember the first time I got 100,000 views on a video, it's like, wow, I've made it. And then it's easy to feel like, oh, the next video got 10% of that, and you feel like, oh, I suck, it's not working, right? Instead of focusing on that, because that's a losing game, focus on who you are helping and assume that it is serving people. I've always felt, I think, some kind of responsibility or just gratitude that anybody would care about what I had to say and that you were spending your time with me. I remember my first speaking gig was at the YMCA in Canada, was at the YMCA, and 3 people showed up. 3 people showed up, and I just did my best to give a great experience to those 3 people. And then I kept doing it. And the next time we had 4, and then we had 7, then we had 12, and then we had 15, and then we had 20, and then we outgrew the space. And so then I went to the boardroom of a bank, Royal Bank of Canada, and took over their boardroom at night for entrepreneurs. These were free events I was putting on just to help entrepreneurs. I had no business model or pitch, just serving. And then we got too big for the Royal Bank. So then we went to Indigo, which was a bookstore. It's like a Barnes & Nobles of Canada. We had, people coming out, and then more and more and more. Every 2 weeks I did it again, and more people came. And at the height, we had the second most number of people to ever show up at the bookstore. Number 1 was Sting when he launched, the musician Sting, when he launched his book. He came and he did a little concert, and that was the number 1 event in terms of the number of people that came out. And the second one was my little entrepreneur speeches. It's crazy. When you focus on who you are serving instead of who you're not, it does a couple of things, okay? Number 1, it makes you feel so much better about what you're doing. It makes you feel so much better that what you're doing matters, right? We all want to feel like what we do matters. And if you're used to 1,000 views on a video and then you get 100 views on the next one, you feel like you don't matter, right? You feel like you're losing your value because it didn't reach as many people. Don't think like that. 100 people saw it. Be thankful and be grateful for the 100 people. It doesn't mean that you stop caring about growth and improvement, right? Somebody asked me about satisfaction and happiness, and they said, I'm always happy, but I'm almost never satisfied. I always want to be getting better, to grow, to improve, and it's more a personal thing of I want to put my best effort out there. Today, this video, I want it to be one of my best videos ever, and maybe I accomplish that, maybe I don't, but it's the intent, because I'm never satisfied with where I'm at, but I'm happy. I'm happy as a human because by putting out great work and by paying attention to who you are serving, I think that's the key to being happy, to being fulfilled, to feeling like what you do matters. So it gives you that. By focusing on who you are serving, it gives you that. And number 2, when you focus on the people who you are serving, here's a secret. They take you to the people who you're not serving yet, right? If you love this video, you might share it with somebody. You might come back and watch another video, and maybe you share that video with somebody. When you focus on loving on your community, it's that double whammy in a positive way of you feel so good that what you do is having a meaningful effect. And when you love on your customers, when you love on your audience, they're going to take you to more people because they're going to feel the love and they're going to spread it for you. You don't have to tell them to do it. They'll do it on their own because they get good vibes by being around you, even if it's just virtually. I think it's really critical. People are really struggling with mental health in creation right now, in entrepreneurship right now. It's a giant struggle. And I see a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of people on YouTube giving up after a couple months saying, I need a mental health break, I'm burnt out. And I've made 12,000 videos over 12 years and we're still going. And it's not, again, that I'm superhuman. It's just a shift. I'm focusing on who I am serving and who I am helping, not all the things that I suck at and how I'm not growing fast enough, because that game never ends, right? It's a never-ending climb. So some years I do better than others, and some months I do better than others. And do I want to have bigger numbers? Of course. But it's not the reason why I do what I do. One other little trick that helps a lot is assume that for somebody, at least one person, what you're going to create today is going to be life-changing. Assume that for somebody, at least one person, what you will create today will be life-changing. That if you're making content and 100 people see your video, and you might think that's a failure because you're used to 1,000 views on your video, that for one of those 100 people, it's a life-changing video. My hope, my intention is that this video today is a life-changing video for somebody. For some of you watching, for most of you watching, maybe it's just another good video. Like, hey, thank you, good shot of Entspresso in the morning. Here we go, thank you, awesome. Or you're having breakfast, or you're doing something else. You're driving in your car on your way to work, and you're listening to me. Awesome, amazing. But I hope that for one person, it's a life-changing video. It's finally going to give you the permission to go off and do the thing that you desperately want to do, that you know is in your heart and has to come out. I just feel that. And I've seen it enough over the years of people telling me that my videos have had an impact on them only years later. Yesterday at Brendan Burchard's influencer event that I spoke at, people were commenting and then DMing me on Instagram and sharing stories of, I've been following you since whatever year, and this is the first time they're ever telling me, right? They never left a comment on a video. They never messaged me. They never emailed me. They never tweeted. They never sent anything. It's the first time I've ever seen their name ever. And they've been a hardcore follower for a decade. And I've had a huge impact and I'm part of their daily life. And it's only now, a decade later, that I'm finding out about it, right? There are people who are like that for you too. And we just assume that we don't matter. And we assume because you might get a few less views on a video or post that it's not having an impact and not having a reach, and then you take that personally and feel like you suck. Assume that it's making an impact on somebody. Assume that it's life-changing for somebody, that you are giving hope, encouragement, motivation, permission for somebody else to go and become their best selves. When you tie your self-worth to the results that you're getting, you ultimately are going to lose, because have some days where you don't get results, and it's going to defeat you. It's going to lead to stress. It's going to lead to anxiety. It's going to lead to wanting to quit. It's going to lead to burnout. The key to fulfillment, the key to momentum, the key to sustained activity, and the key to actually loving the work that you're doing is reminding yourself to focus on the people that you are serving instead of the ones that you aren't. Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
By the way, when you love conditionally, who always gets hurt? You do, because we do, because when you love conditionally, it feels like a trade. I love you as long as, and the person knows that at some level. And so they can't really love back because it isn't love. It's manipulation. I'll be nice to you if you give me this. I'll love you as long as you behave the way I want. As long as you speak the way I want you to speak. As long as you agree with me. As long as you follow my rules, the blue rules that make me comfortable, then I'll love you. But that's not love. That's you just finding a way to meet your own needs for certainty and significance. There's nothing wrong with that. It just leaves you empty and creates lots of pain. How many see? So the only way out of pain is more spiritual growth. And as simplistic as that sounds or overgeneralized, spiritual growth just means seeing more of life than just your self. Right? What is this increase in consciousness? I hate the term because it's so overused by people. A lot of people use it to, I'm so conscious. That's significance talking. But consciousness is caring. When you're egocentric, all you care about is yourself. And we're all egocentric if we get in enough fear, enough survival. And kids are all egocentric. People say kids are so loving. Bullshit. They're loving when you give them what they want. Otherwise, they scream their ass off. But we love them because we're drugged. Drugged by natural goods. Oxytocin, it's our child. We love them no matter what. It's a beautiful thing. Otherwise, kids wouldn't survive because they're selfish fucks. We don't see it, thank God. But we need to grow. By the way, why, when you're a child, you get love for no matter what you do, you get loved until oxytocin wears off. And then all of a sudden, the rest of your life, you got to earn it. Because if life always just gave you what you wanted all the time, you'd never grow spiritually. It would all be me, 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 me. And yet, we've all been loved so deeply because we know it's there. But we're supposed to know it's there, not so we go get it, so we go get it out of ourselves and give it. People ask my wife all the time, what's something about Tony that nobody knows? And she says, the level he prepares. So that was Ray Dalio. I know I got a chance to be with literally the Da Vinci of investing. Most average people never heard his name, but right. You have to have 10 years ago, you should have a $5 billion net worth. And you had to give him $100 million to start with for him to talk to you. Right. Today he won't talk to you and take your money no matter how much money you have. He's closed his fund out. He won't do a dime more. So to do that, I couldn't consciously walk in and just say, okay, I've read everything that's available. I had to watch every video. There's only a few out there. I had to read every piece. I had to like tear it apart and see if I could understand his entire structure of investing so that when I was there, I could ask questions no one else has asked before. And as a result, he actually shared with me, he's averaged a 23% return for 21 straight years. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Smartest man, one of the smartest men alive in that area. And because I understood so much, we could pitch and catch.
Right.
You know, most people, you know, they can just throw the ball, right? But I want to be able to throw the ball and have you throw it to me and throw it right back to you, right? That's where we get something that's really exciting. And because I prepared at that level, he was saying to me afterwards, he goes, you know this better than anybody I know. And so it opened him up more. And you talked to me in more detail. And in the end, he actually gave me a strategy that I said to him, I said, look, I said, Ray, I said, you're one of the most generous men I know. I said, you've just given me this incredible strategy, but the strategy was like explaining why most people lose money and here's how he's made money in every market, right? Pretty complex strategy. And I said, the strategy's great, but it's kind of like you told me you want to build a chocolate cake, get some chocolate, you know, get some sugar. You didn't tell me the amounts. I mean, the amounts are everything, right? Get the right amounts. And he goes, Tony, I can't give you that. That's my secret sauce. And I said, Ray, you can give it to me. He goes, I can't. He goes, that's what I get, you know, that's why, you know, I get the money I do. I said, no, you don't. You haven't taken money for 10 years. I said, you're going to give away half your net worth anyway. I said, you just got done telling me the average guy's never going to do this. Help me out. Give me your secret sauce, right? And I got him laughing. He goes, well, Tony, it's kind of complex. I said, I'm good at taking complex and making it simple. He goes, well, I use leverage. I said, create one without leverage so the average guy could do it.
Right.
And then I got this chill down the back of my spine when he said, well, it wouldn't be perfect. I said, your idea not perfect is better than anybody else on earth. I said,
right.
Tell me. And then I took out a pen and just said, tell me the numbers, right? And he looked at me and goes, well, let's try this. And he starts to lay this thing out. So when I'm done, I can feel vibration in my body. Like I got something nobody's got that I can give to the world that'll be extraordinary. And he goes, go test that. He goes, don't, when people talk about testing, they look back 5 years or 10 years. He said, but the past doesn't equal the future that way. But if you were to test something over 75 years, the entire modern time of history, that's what you should test that formula. Back test it for 75 years, come back and tell me what you get. 85% of the time, it's for 75 years. Think of how much the world has changed in the last 10 years or 20 years. 85% of the time it makes money. The 15% of the time it didn't. The maximum drawdown in 75 years was not 20% like you've seen at 30 or 40, you've seen in the marketplace over the years. 3.9%. The average loss is 1.7, average gain is 10%. So if you could go to Vegas and you could be right 85% of the time, and when you lost, only lose, 1%, 1.7%, how you'd be investing a little bit, you'd be gambling a little bit, right? Yeah. So he gave that to me. So I got those types of things because I was so prepared. And so when I go to do an audience, a big audience, like I do my Date with Destiny seminar, people do 20 pages of homework and I read all that for a couple thousand people. I won't remember their faces, I won't remember, it's in my brain. So when somebody stands up, something inside me recognizes the pattern or recognizes this is the pattern that multiple people in the room need to deal with. And my brain clicks in and makes it happen. So I believe, garbage in, garbage out, as simplistic as it is, that if you keep putting unbelievable quality amount in, when it's time for you to cash that spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, business check, it ain't gonna bounce because you've been making deposits and you have plenty to give. You're not just winging it to see what happens. So I'm intense about that, but I also love it because I'm always growing too, because I'm always learning more than I need to teach anybody else. An extraordinary life is life on your terms, and there's two parts. Part one to have an extraordinary life is mastering the skill of the science of achievement. How do I take what I envision and make it real? And how do I do that quicker, faster, better, easier? The ability to manifest what you come up with and make it real, like you've done with your company, that's a skill set. I spend an unbelievable amount of time helping people do it faster, quicker, better, showing them the shortcuts, teaching them the strategies, modeling what works so you can save yourself a decade. But I would submit to you that having done this for 38 years with, 50 million people at this stage, I can tell you that the science of achievement, there are a lot of people that are damn good at that, and they still don't have an extraordinary life. They have an extraordinary life. You see it as extraordinary, but I get the phone call from the multi-billionaire who tells me he wants to do this thing on his business, but what he really find out is he's miserable as hell, and he's hoping somehow I'm gonna rub off on him on that side too. And so I give him what he asked for, the change in his business, but I also give him what he needs, which is the change inside of him. So the second skill is the art of fulfillment. If you want an extraordinary life, you can't just achieve, you gotta be fulfilled. As simplistic as that sounds, but it's an art. It's not a science.
Sure.
It's a science to making money, come on. Any age, any color, any background, any gender, if you do these things, you'll have an abundance of money. You do these things, you're gonna have too much month at the end of the month. You're gonna have financial stress, right? Body. Everyone's biochemically different, but you and I both know there's fundamental rules, laws. There's a science to the body. You violate that science, you're gonna have dis-ease, you're gonna have low energy. You align with that, you're gonna have an abundance of energy. It's gonna affect everything in your life. It's a science. Fulfillment's not like that. Fulfillment is as different as our human beings. You wanna know what God or the universe likes? Look at the jungle, look at the forest.
Right.
It's diverse, right? So most people think, well, I wanna get that because they've been modeling somebody else, and that might work on how to achieve something. It'll never work for what to fulfill you. How many people you know, like you, got what you thought you wanted and you weren't fulfilled?
Right.
And that, I always tell people, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. The ultimate failure, because if you go at something and you fail and you're an achiever, you don't fail. You go, I learned something, I'll just try something else. I'm gonna still get there. But when you succeed and you're not happy, you're technically screwed. It's just like, what are you gonna do? So, a perfect example of this, I mentioned in the seminar you were there because it hit me about a year and a month ago, we lost what I consider a national treasure, Robin Williams. And I asked people, how many of you love Robin Williams? Everybody raising their hand all around the world, right? He made people laugh, people were touched by him. So how good was he at the science of achievement? I mean, he wanted to be a great comedian and make the whole world laugh, he did. He wanted to have his own TV show, he did. He wanted the #1 show, he did it. He wanted to make movies, he did. He wanted to have an Academy Award for not being funny. Dramatic, and he did it, right?
He did it, yeah.
He said he wanted a beautiful family. He achieved everything, and he hung himself.
That's crazy.
And I know recently someone's saying, well, you know, he had dementia, he had drug abuse, he had alcohol abuse through most of his life because he made everybody happy but whom?
Himself.
That's the ultimate failure. So if I had no other message to offer your viewers, and you let me give it to them right now, I'll tell you what I believe. I believe our lives are controlled by one force, decisions. I certainly believe in force greater than myself, call it God if you will, grace, whatever you want to call it, the universe. But I also believe it gives us choices. And the decisions we make control us much more than the conditions we meet. It's not the conditions, it's your decisions. Decisions of what to believe, decisions of what to do, decisions of what to give. I say to people, think about, you know, look back 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, and think of a decision you made that if you would have made a different decision, you'd have a totally different life today. Better or worse, I don't know, but totally different.
Right.
In your case, if you'd stayed doing what you're doing, you'd have a lot of money and still been miserable, right? You know, and probably your great lady over here would be feeling miserable because she loves you so much and she'd be feeling your misery, wanting to figure out what to do. But you made that decision.
Right.
The most important decision you can make above any on the face of the earth is deciding that no matter what happens in your life, no matter what happens, you're gonna live in a beautiful state. And what the hell does that mean? It means that you're not gonna suffer. It means a beautiful state is that you're gonna be happy, but that's only one. Or you're gonna feel creative, or you're gonna be passionate, or you're gonna be in awe of something, or you're gonna feel love. Any state that's a beautiful state is really the core essence of who you are without fear, right? All of our suffering as human beings, and I deal with people all the time. I mentioned to you off camera, 2 people I coached yesterday. One's a presidential candidate, and the other one is a rap superstar, right? Both in the same day. And without naming any names, people that have everything, by your point of view, most people's point of view, they have the fame and they have the love and millions of people love them and they have great economics, financial freedom, and they have homes and they have the fashion, they have everything, they're the shit. I can't tell you how many of them are miserable.
Right.
The majority are miserable. I'm not bullshitting. I'm the one who gets the phone call from the vast majority. When I say miserable, they're so used to it, some of them don't even realize they're miserable, but most do. They get in a place where it's like, how do I keep this up? How do I keep outdoing myself? How do I, you know, I built these 32 companies, how to keep all 32 going and make them all grow every single year. And that's not how life is, right? And then they worry about what will people think, what will they do? So the decision to say, I am not gonna suffer, that if suffering arises, pain's one thing, suffering's another. Suffering is when you're like, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine is a very famous Indian industrialist and billionaire guy. And he just recently took a sport in India that's been around 2,000 years that almost every village child plays, and he turned it into a professional sport. No one had ever made a professional sport 2 years ago. He invested, I don't know, I'm making the number up, $20 million in it. In 2 years, the sport is so successful in India that 500 million people watched the finals.
That's amazing.
2 months ago. 500 million people, right? So 500 million, that's how it is in India. And people are saying this is gonna be as big as, for them, cricket is the ultimate thing, right? The biggest cricket. So his team valuation, I'm making the number up, I think it's gone to like $500 million in 2 years from, $25 million. And his team is number 2 in the whole world, right? Wow. He's got these great players. So I'm with him, and he gets a phone call. And he's just got done telling me about this great success and where it is and how proud he is and how everyone goes to the games and people are so thrilled and it's just become this movement in India and he created, he's so proud of it. And he gets this phone call, and the phone call is from his management team telling him that one of his competitors has just offered 4 times as much money as he was offering to his top 3 athletes who are the core of his whole team. And of course they all took them, right? And he was so angry. He was like, I can't even believe this. These guys were working in shops and I brought them here and I made them a star on national television and they have no loyalty to me. And he's suffering. And the way you suffer is you focus on yourself. Suffering comes when we obsess about ourselves, what we're getting or not getting, what we should have done, what others should have done for us. It's the me game. You, my dear friend, and I say this with no blowing smoke, your primary core is a giver, which is why you're prospering. You're not the me. You're like, how do I give more, do more, share more, create more? How do we do a better job for our clients? How do we do a better job for our internal customers who work with us, our partners? Your entire life is that. That's why you're prospering. And you're not feeling suffering. But when you do suffer, and I promise you do, you correct me if I'm wrong, it'll because you're worrying about something in the future. How's this gonna happen? Will this come together? Suffering can be worry, it can be anger, it can be frustration. It's anything that takes you out of a beautiful state. And here's what people don't get. You can end suffering by stop focusing on yourself and focus on something you wanna serve greater than yourself. Your children, your wife, your mission, your life. You can get out of it in an instant because the nature of the human mind is to constantly compare things. Your mind, your brain is a 2 million year old device and it is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you survive. And that's why it's always looking for what's wrong. But it used to be what's wrong, a saber-toothed tiger so I can protect myself. Now people are worried about what people think about them or do they have enough money when 2/3 of the planet lives on $2 a day and you're making $38,000, you're rich. The poorest of the poor in our country are considered rich. I'm not saying they should stay that way. But you can only build on success. And so my view is, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, my goal would have you consider something. Life is short. We don't know how short it's gonna be. But if you only had a week to live, I bet you wouldn't allow yourself to suffer over a little crap that makes you crazy normally. I think you would probably spend time with those you love, you would do what you love, you'd take awe in a sunset, you'd smell the air, you would take in everything in those final moments that you possibly do. So my thing is, why wait? Why wait? Why not just decide that if I start to suffer, I know the solution, because suffering is me obsessing about me. You might say, it's not me, I'm worried about my kids because they're not doing well. No, you're worried that you haven't done enough for your kids. It's about you still, right? You're worried about what was done or what you should have done or what shouldn't have done. And you can end that in an instant by becoming aware of it and saying, I have made the most important decision of all. I'm gonna live in a beautiful state. Because here's what's gonna happen. Anybody watching, you may lose a family member, you probably will. Somebody may get cancer. Your business the government might change the rules. They might change things radically that you can't even do anything about it. You might go bankrupt. You might get divorced. I'm not saying anybody will, but no one knows what's gonna really happen in your life. Life's full of uncertainty, but here's what you can know. You can decide no matter what happens, you could have a great time. If somebody like Viktor Frankl can be locked up in Auschwitz and come out of that and experience finding joy in the middle of Auschwitz, then human beings have a capacity they've undersold themselves on. We think that the outside world determines how we feel. If people have to behave a certain way, if your husband or your wife or your kids or your coworkers or whoever, your boss, has to behave a certain way for you to be happy, and if they don't, you're unhappy, then you're always going to be unhappy, because the more people around you, the more they're going to change that, because they're all human, right? And if you have to be a certain way to be happy, you're going to violate it too. So my invitation is, as great as it is to achieve, more important to enjoy.
Right.
And if you can enjoy every moment in that state, when you're feeling loving and playful and passionate and curious and awe, you treat other people 100 times better than when you're feeling frustrated, pissed off, overwhelmed, worried, stressed, or feeling sorry for yourself.
Right.
You're going to be a better parent, you're going to be a better lover, you're going to be a better business person, you're going to have a better life. So my soliloquy is, decide today. And actually say, what if I cut it off? What if I said, I'm not willing to settle and I'm just gonna live in a beautiful state? Doesn't mean you won't feel bad, it doesn't mean you won't stay there. You instantly change. That's doable. I'm on a mission to help people end suffering. I always tell people the most valuable lesson I got from my mentor, Jim Rohn, was I asked my father, worked 2 jobs. We were always broke. We had no money for food. And we lived in a community we moved to, which was, I thought they were all rich and we were on the other side of the tracks. It was lower middle class, but compared to where we lived before, these people seem rich compared to us. And I just didn't understand it. And Jim said to me, Tony, it's not about the value of your soul, it's about the value of you in the marketplace. And your father's skills are not that valuable. He was an underground parking attendant, and he would take people's ticket and make change. Well, the research now shows, it's being done at Yale, it's being done overseas in England as well, and they found that 40% of all jobs they project in the next 10 years are going to disappear because of technology. It's going to be replaced by an algorithm, it's going to be changed. You know, all these guys on Wall Street, you're seeing all these algorithms take over and they're getting rid of all these traders, right? It's changing radically in these hedge funds. There's 3 million truck drivers. Self-driving cars are here. In the next 5 years, they will be the standard, certainly within 7 or 8 years. Are you going to hire someone who can only work 8 hours a day and sometimes gets drunk or can make a mistake, when you can buy a machine, write down the machine, and be in a position where it works 24 hours a day driving? But no one is telling these drivers this, and they have to retool now. So technology is the biggest challenge. Labor is less valuable because of efficiencies with technology, and it's going to get better and better for technology, which is scary when you think about what's going to happen for jobs. So I say to people, you've got to participate in your own rescue. You've got to retool yourself. The idea that Bernie Sanders has of providing free education sounds wonderful, but the education he wants to do is community college. There are no skill sets in community colleges today, for the most part, that are going to prepare you for the economy or a job that's there. So what is that going to do? You're just going to waste more money, more time. We need to retool ourselves. The government's not going to do it for you. These thoughts that we have, we think they're our thoughts, so it makes it really hard to change them. And people meditate and try to not think thoughts. Show me somebody who's done that successfully, consistently. They're full of right? Everybody, the mind thinks thoughts. But here's the distinction. If I told you 100 years ago we're going to fly to the moon and back, you would have called me a lunatic. That's where the term comes from. And people still use it, and it doesn't make any sense, because a lunatic is somebody who thought we go to the moon and back and we've done it, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. But if I would have told you 100 years ago that there's going to be a box in your pocket and you're going to pull this thing out, you're going to hit a couple buttons, and then it's going to capture invisible waves that are drifting around the earth and bring the waves in, and you're going to see somebody on the other side of the earth and you're going to talk to them, you're totally nuts. Thoughts are those invisible waves. And when you use your body in a certain way, if I sit like this, I'm going to tap into a different channel of those waves than if I'm sitting like this. Kind of like a TV set. If I turn one channel, it might be a comedy channel. I'm going to see a lot of laughter. Turn another one, it's a horror channel. Turn another channel, it's a romance channel. This is what changes which of those waves you touch in. So if you can start to realize that your thoughts that you think are your thoughts, there's nothing unique about your thoughts. They've been around for thousands of years. You're just tapping into them because of what you're doing with your body that makes you either fearful or passionate or courageous or whatever you're feeling. As you go in those states, you get different thoughts. So what I want people to see is that learn how to just see those thoughts go by. Learn how to be entertained by those thoughts. Because I have crazy thoughts, but what I've gotten good at is going, look at that crazy thought. That's not me, that's the mind. Not your mind, because if it's you, how do you change you? Pretty hard. But I really truly know I haven't heard a thought come out of you that's original. You've called them your thoughts, but they're not. You've stolen them. They've been around forever. When you see that, it's easier to let go of them. And letting go of those thoughts is one of the ways that you free yourself. And again, the more you do it, just like a muscle, you get better and better and better. And all of a sudden, the shit that used to make you crazy or stressed out, how many things have you worried about that never came to be. And some people, their life is good, so they worry about other people, so they're never not worried, right? So it's really just a pattern. If you want wealth, real wealth is not just money, it's emotion. It's like, what are we really after in money? You don't want money, you don't want pieces of paper with the pictures of deceased notables on it. You want what you think money will give you. You think it'll give you freedom or security or stability or love. It won't give you love. It'll get you sex, it won't get you love. Money won't, right? So really what you're after is the emotion. And so what I want people to get is the emotion they want now, and all it is a new habit. It's learning to discipline this mind, right? By realizing the mind thoughts are out there and letting them float by and constantly coming back to what can I love about this? What can I appreciate? It's like, if you can learn to love or at least appreciate, start to enjoy the things that you used to get upset about, how much freedom would you have? How much more joy you'd have? And I know people got billions of dollars, I've coached them, who is like, holy, they live in scarcity all the time. One man, I'll never forget, he's screaming at his wife. I'm in the meeting, I'm in the house, and he's screaming at his wife because she spent some money on a bunch of outfits and stuff like that. And he's a multi-billionaire. He couldn't spend all his money in his lifetime. And then he's totally upset at his daughter who's in her 20s who spent some money too. And I'm like, I pulled him aside afterwards and I said, what do you do this for? And what do you do it for? And he's like, well, it's the principle thing. I said, no, the principle thing is, do you love these people and do you want them to have an abundant life? When you have, you don't have one loss, but you live like you're poor, And it's like, I finally got through to him. But so many people, that's why I say money doesn't change you. Money magnifies who you are. So you want to expand the depth of who you are and free yourself from suffering by just knowing it's a pattern of thought, and you can change the pattern of thought. Michael Gerber, the guy that wrote the E-Myth, talks about why so many young businesses fail. And one of the things he says is most people are not really entrepreneurs, but they think that's what they should be. They think that's the sexy thing, that's the most attractive thing, that's the best answer. And what I say to you is, you gotta separate the vehicle from the outcome. What is it that's gonna truly fulfill you? What is it that's gonna give you that extraordinary life? What's gonna make things magnificent on your terms, not somebody else's terms, not your father, your mother, your background? What is that really? Separate the vehicle, because there's many ways to get to that vehicle. But I'm saying, sometimes you gotta reevaluate what's gonna really make you fulfilled. What is your gift? Are you an artist? Are you the talent that can produce something no one else produces as a skill or a product or a service or some impact? Are you incredibly good at management? You really know how to manage or lead people? Are you an extraordinary entrepreneur that can take that gigantic gut load of risk and can create the vision and attract the talent that you need and the managers and leaders? You may have all three abilities, but which one really fulfills you the most is going to be the critical question. Because we tend to want to do them all, especially in a room like this, because you're all overachievers, right? Me too. And you say, well, I can do all these. Yes, you can, but what will it do to your quality of life? See, again, the secret's going to be this. What is an extraordinary life on your terms today? What does it take to create world-class marketing? What is the unique selling proposition? What is what we call value-added marketing, VAM? Today, most people are sick and tired of advertising because where is it? Everywhere. In fact, I got a question for you. How many of you in this room do not even see banner ads anymore? Literally, it's there, but you don't perceive it. Like your brain literally washes it out. Raise your hand if that's true. Keep your hands nice and high and look around the room right now, and you'll see 98% of the people wash it out. So don't buy them unless you're going to create something really unique. It's a total waste of your money and your time in the world we're in today. Today, what creates marketing is when you don't just market, but you add value to people. You do something, you teach them, you give them an insight, you give something valuable that costs them nothing, and then they look to you as an expert. They look to you as a person that adds value. They want you to supply them more information, more experience, more products, more services. People ask, what does it take to succeed? The one answer I give them is hunger. That hunger is the greatest asset that you'll see in everybody from Richard Branson to Google or an Apple or Facebook, these giant companies. You got to become a master of your ability to turn on your determination or your creativity or your hunger or your passion or whatever it is it's going to take for you to get from where you are to where you really want to be. Intelligence is so valuable, but there are so many smart people that can't fight their way out of a paper bag. Hunger is that part of you that says, I will not stop. So you really have to decide. The most important decision is, do I want to be happy? Will I commit to being happy? More important than happy. Sometimes you can be so happy you smile so much your face hurts, right? You need variety. Am I committed to living in a beautiful state even when it doesn't go my way, even when it rains on my parade, even when my biggest fear shows up? Because I can't control whether your husband or wife will live or die or get sick or leave you or get a divorce. I don't want any of that to happen to any human being. I hate suffering. I do anything I can to help people not suffer. But I can't control that. You can. There are people who have lost their arms, lost their sight. There have been people that have been through the most horrific experiences in life, and they found a way to still be happy because they've made the decision that life is too short to suffer. I've interviewed dozens and hundreds over the years, but dozens that have impacted my soul, that made me realize I can change this. I've just gotten used to it. I bought into the theory that this survival software that's constantly running and making you suffer, that's normal. No, that's what the mind will do. And mind has been around forever. What I'm going to do is something different. And the way I get out of suffering, I give myself a 90-second rule. It's really simple. I say, look, if I feel myself starting to feel that stress, feeling that pissed offness or upsetness or concern or worry about my kid, whatever, I realize that's not going to make it better. Life's too short to suffer. And then I just kind of breathe slowly, slow everything down, and I just watch the thought go by and go, look at that crazy thought. Because everybody's had crazy thoughts. Everybody's had the thought, I'm going to kill that son of a bitch, right? And then you don't kill them because you don't believe that thought. It's the thoughts that are stressful that you believe that mess you up. When you question them, you break the pattern. The more I've done it's like a muscle. The more I've trained myself to do it, I can authentically tell you now, it takes a lot for something to take more than 90 seconds for me now. And the level of joy surpasses all the money you could ever have in a million years. And then the money, it's easier to even make money because you're not attached. You don't have the fears. You don't have the scarcity that people have because you feel so rich already right now. I always tell people, don't wait to be rich. What is that richness? It's abundance, it's joy, it's happiness, it's contribution, it's getting out of yourself. Because as long as we're thinking about, oh my God, I lost something, or you did something, now I have less love, less respect, less money. If I think lost less, or because you did something, or because I did something, I'm never gonna have what I want in my life, lost less, never. Those three thought patterns, they're the source of all suffering. And the antidote, see it for what it really is, know it's BS, and find something to appreciate. Most people who start a business very often will start 2 and 3, 4 more. And the reason they do it is because the first one isn't succeeding or they no longer
lack
juice
patience.
for it. Exactly right. And so what happens to that person is they're never going to be successful in most cases, unless they get lucky. You can get lucky, you can bounce across something that's easier to do. But most people are always looking for that next level. What my view is it's great to test all these things, but you got to find what is your flagship. What is it that you're going to commit your soul to? Because if you don't do that, the inevitable challenges are going to come up and you're going to then move on to something else
100%.
that's more enjoyable. And so the other thing to look at is business is about constantly, not only adding such massive value, doing more for others than anybody else, but it's also simultaneously about your own psychology. It's your ability to go through thresholds of control. It's like, I can remember when I didn't have $50,000 to keep the doors open on my company. I had 12 employees and 11 wanted to quit because they hated the person running the show. And $50,000 would be like 500 million to me today. And I figured out how to get through that threshold. And once I did, all the problems related to that were handled. I know you've done this as well. And then I had a $5 million lawsuit that was totally unfair and unjust. And I finally had just the amount of time, energy, and money I had to bite the bullet and do it. And $5 million was more than I could ever imagine. Then I had a partner who took a company that was losing $1 million a day and turned it to 1.5 billion in positive EBITDA. I'm not mentioning names, Amway. And he wanted me to join him in business with some other partners, not doing the multi-level side. Did the business, put in 10 million bucks. We all put in 10 million, it was 40 million in debt. But I signed joint and several, which I didn't understand in those days what that meant. And 2 of my partners were supposedly billionaires and they went broke. We bought some more companies. I ended up with $120 million in debt that I was on the hook for. No one else had any money. And I'm getting up to do a seminar wanting to throw up. It was a new threshold of control. So when you ski or you snowboard and you think you're just new at it and you think you're going down a blue or green and it turns out to be a double black and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? And so you have 2 choices. One is you start to go down and you freak out and you're gonna die, you slam on the ground and try to hang on for dear life, or the other is, baby, you focus on where you wanna go and you find a way to curve, you find a way to cut. And once you do it a couple of times,
you get used to it.
You have no more fear of that element. Now, my biggest one, out of that. That led me to $1 billion. I have 31 companies now, to give you an idea, 7 different industries as diverse as like, stem cells to virtual reality. We have the exclusive to the NBA now in virtual reality, to give an example. I got 1,200 employees. We're on 3 continents, and we got $5 billion in sales. But I did that because I first stayed on one frickin' thing.
Exactly
I got so masterful at it. There is another level. The only reason you keep saying there isn't is you feel so exhausted about where you are. But life, the universe, or God is just testing you because there is another level. If this is good, giant jump to excellence, good, poor to good to excellence. There's a level where all your dreams are realized. There's a level that you've always dreamed about. It is real. It has not gone away. But it takes that extra burst when you think there's nothing left, there's no way, you've tried everything 10 million times, and you keep going. It's almost like God is saying, if you keep hitting this wall enough times, I will see that you will not stop, that you are filled with that level of determination, faith, and courage, and then the door opens, and you get to that next level. But what most people don't know is, the next level is just 2 millimeters above. And it's called outstanding, ladies and gentlemen, outstanding. What's it called? What's it called? What's it called? Outstanding, magnificent, unstoppable, extraordinary, not excellent. It's a different level. It's a level where you are not one of the best, you are the best. And you know what's amazing? You only have to be 2 millimeters more than everybody else, and you get everything. You get the joy, the laughter, the fun, the family, the passion, the economics, the freedom, the spirit. It's all there. What Jerry Maguire called the Quan, baby. All of it. And it's just 2 millimeters above, and most excellent people give up because they're exhausted. And there's some people who go, the harder I hit it, the more I hit it, sooner or later it's going down, I'm not stopping. And when you do that enough, it pops open. Treat people at the end of the relationship like it's the beginning, and there won't be an end. And that's not just your intimate relationship. What if your customers, what if you fell in love with your customers, with your clients, more than your product, more than your company? If your entire life is about meeting their needs, if you would do what for your customers and clients, you would do what? If you love your customers and clients, you do anything, guess what? They're gonna love you. But most people love their customers and clients as long as they buy from them, do what they want, respond to them. And when they don't, they go, that's the end. You want clients for life, not just customers? Fall in love with them. It's a different focus, isn't it? It's a different meaning. And that creates a different life because you make decisions differently from that place. Fulfillment is an art. What's going to fulfill you is different than the other person next to you. You're not going to learn that from anybody else. And you got to find it, because success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I get those phone calls all the time for the multi-billionaire entrepreneur or politician or business person, or a person just won their Academy Award and they're depressed and they can't tell anybody because they got all their goals, but they're not fulfilled because they really don't have that sense of meaning in their life. They went for something and they got it, they achieved. And if you doubt this, what I'm saying is relevant to you or us or anyone, just think about a year, a month ago, we lost what I consider to be a national treasure, Robin Williams. How many of you loved Robin Williams? Look around the room, keep your hands up, look. And most of you didn't know him. Almost every, and anywhere you go in the world, people love Robin Williams. By the way, was he great at achievement? Oh my God, that guy, he said he wanted to become a great comedian, he did that. I want to make the world laugh, he did. I want to make my own TV show, he did. I want to have the #1 TV show, he did it. I want to make movies, he did it. I want an Academy Award for not being funny. Not his skill set, drama, and he did it. I want a beautiful family, he did it. And then he hung himself. Make everybody happy but yourself. Not a good plan. So if I had a gift to give you, it would be maybe make a different decision. And the decision is that no matter what happens in your life, you're gonna live in a beautiful state. A beautiful state. And that could be happy, that could be grateful, that could be being generous. Those are all beautiful states, aren't they? It could be curious, it could be fun, it could be playful. You're not limited to one state, but it's different than suffering. And most people's suffering, and all suffering I've ever seen, I've traveled to 100 countries, I've dealt with presidents of countries and presidents of businesses, CEOs, I've dealt with people in prison, I've dealt with, you name it, average people. Suffering always comes because you're obsessed about something related to you. You can only be depressed if you're focusing on yourself. You say, no, I'm depressed because it's my kids and they're not doing well. No, you're depressed because you feel you failed your kids. It's about you. It's about how you think what you should have done or shouldn't have done, or what someone did to you or didn't do to you in the past or the future, which don't even exist. So I have a simple goal. My goal is help people make a decision that says, I don't know what's going to happen. You might get a divorce, even though you don't think so. You might find a member of your family with cancer. You might have your house get burned down or have a tornado go by, and if you live in the same place, it happens every 2 years and you move back, we should talk, but some people seem to do that for some reason. You can't control those things. I can't control those things. I don't want those to happen to you or anybody I love or anybody who's even a stranger to me, but they're going to happen. True? Not positive thinking, just the truth. So if that's going to happen, I say make a decision now that says, I'm going to live in a beautiful state and I'm going to find beauty in whatever life brings me. Because life is too short not to.
So what do you think was the first real breakthrough that you had as a teen that started you on your path, and how did you get there?
Gosh, there's so many. One of the first ones I think was probably just anchoring in when my mom and my dad, I had 4 different fathers. My mom was a powerful woman, so she kicked my 4th father out, whose name I carry, and he adopted me. And when he went out, she decided it wasn't his side, so she kicked me out too by chasing me out with a knife. And I wasn't worried she was going to stab me or anything, but I decided this is freedom, and I've got to find a way to make my life work. But I had no money. I had a 1960 Volkswagen I worked $40 a week as a janitor to buy and pay for. And so I had no car, I had no money, I had no anything. I went and slept in a person's laundry room, and then I decided I've got to figure out what to do, and I needed to feed my mind because I was so depressed, I was so overwhelmed, I'm missing my brother and sister and feeling just completely out of sorts. So I got on a bus and I traveled 14 miles, I remember, because I ended up running it one time. And I went to this bookstore and I bought this book called The Magic of Believing by Claudia Bristol. It's the first real book other than maybe Think and Grow Rich or Emerson's essays. And I started on this journey of saying every single day I'm going to feed my mind. I'm not going to hope good thoughts show up. I'm going to read biographies. I'm going to find out what makes people tick. I'm going to understand what makes me tick. And I wanted to read a book a day, but I didn't do that. I took a speed reading class and I read 700 books over 7 years. And they were all personal development, human development, psychology, physiology. And then what I try to do is take anything that I learned and apply it. And then when I applied it, I was 5'1" in my sophomore year in high school. I'm 6'7" now. I tell people the difference is personal growth. Really. But sincerely, I became Mr. Solution because I wanted to help everybody. So I was this little fat guy, and I couldn't lose weight, and I lost weight. And all my buddies are like, how'd you do that? And I said, well, here's what I did. And they lost weight, and then we all got girls. And that led to, as a young kid, that led to where, if you had a problem, I was Mr. Solution. Especially if you're a girl, I was more motivated to help you. So the breakthrough was really understanding the power of compressing decades into days. That if someone has spent decades of their life and they compress it into a book, and you can read it in an hour or a few days, you have such an advantage, because when you learn by your own experience, it's painful and it's slow. When you learn by other people's experience, everybody knows in the financial world, other people's money is leverage, right? Well, other people's experience is more powerful than other people's money, because you can have the money and lose it. But if you get the experience, you can change it all. So I think that was the beginning for me, and it set me on a lifelong path of hunger.
When you went off on your own, that's kind of the point I think people, most businesses fail at the beginning, in the first few years. So there you are on your own. What do you think were the keys to success those first few years by yourself?
Obsession with adding more value than anybody else ever dreamed of. I mean, my entire life from the very beginning days was, how do I do more for others than anyone else on earth? How do I give them experiences that are lasting? How do I create change where change was impossible? How do I take somebody who's been in therapy for 7 years and in an hour produce that result? And the way I did that was by challenging traditional psychologists and psychiatrists and getting on national radio and saying, give me your worst patient, I'll handle them in an hour, which was pretty abrasive. As a young kid, you can get by with that stuff. But the best part was I backed it up. And so one of the first interventions I did was in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I got on the radio. And this psychiatrist got on the phone and just on the radio live and just thrashed me. You're a liar, you're a charlatan. People like you should not be allowed on the radio. And I said, sir, I said, are you a scientist? He said, of course, I'm a physician. I said, well, a scientist would never make an assumption. And I said, you've never met me, right? No. You've never met my clients? No. And you're calling me a liar on national radio. I said, you must be stating your hypothesis. Your hypothesis is that I'm a liar and a charlatan, and if you're stating a hypothesis and you're truly a scientist, you got to be willing to test it. Am I right?
Yep.
He goes, well, yeah. I said, great, I'm doing a free guest event at the Holiday Inn tomorrow night. Anyone hearing my voice can come. I'm going to do a series of demonstrations, and I'm going to take one of your clients and turn around. I said, share with me somebody that you've never been able to change. I said, I'm sure you got plenty of those. You want to play hardball? I can play hardball. He goes, well, I have patients that aren't ready to change yet. I said, I haven't found any. Of course, I've done 3 therapies total. But I had so much belief. So long story short, he told me this woman he'd been working on for 7 years with a snake phobia. A phobia is not just a fear, it's an uncontrolled response to fear. So like, she dreamed the snake would bite her on the face, and then the adrenaline would shoot through her body and wake her up. And this would happen 4 to 7 times a night.
Oh my goodness.
7 years. So, he was put in a corner, and so he brought her down, and it took me about 15 minutes. At the end of it, I tested first, and she's screaming and shaking, and then I wrapped the snake around her. And that changed my entire career, because in that moment, there was no question. Everybody in the audience saw, this woman is transformed. And I said, you've been treated by that psychiatrist for how many years?
Wow.
7 years. Then I took on sports stars. Then I turned around, I did some work with Mother Teresa, and Nelson Mandela, and Bill Clinton. And as the years went by, it just built and built and built. You get on an airplane, what's the first thing they say? If we get into trouble, mask will come down, oxygen's there, and the first thing you got to do is put it on your kid, right? No, why? Who do they tell you to put it on? Yourself, you selfish bastard. What's the deal here, right? But it's because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of them. So for leaders, what I always tell them is, it's you first. It starts with you, and it starts with your psychology. 80% of growing a business, if you look at what the chokehold is on a business, it's always the leader. And 80% of that chokehold is the psychology, and 20% is the mechanics. I mean, people in this room know the mechanics and strategies beyond what anybody on earth knows in their category. So it's really about you being in the state where you execute. It's like I always tell people, knowledge is not power, it's total BS. Knowledge is potential power. Execution trumps knowledge every day of the week. And so my life is, how do you get yourself to execute? And execution comes from learning to put yourself in that right state every day. I believe that leadership is really a skill of influence. It is the most important skill that any human being can master. And I don't think of leadership as a position. I see it as a skill, a tool that all of us have to have. In other words, the quality of your life, I really believe, comes down to your level of leadership. Other people don't have to follow you to be a leader, but you have to live life on your terms. And the first person you have to influence is yourself. Whether you're fit or fat, whether your kids are on drugs or not, is who has more influence, the guy on the street corner or you. Whether you're fit or fat is, can you influence your own hands, your own body, your own mind to do what's necessary. So I think to be able to influence the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and the actions of another human being, that's what leadership is. The minimum I do is I want to know more about my clients than they know about themselves. I know a man that from Australia decided, he was a dentist, and he decided he was tired of people not showing up. He was tired of trying to bill and not getting paid, properly from various insurance. He was tired of all these things. And one day, he just decided to sit down with every one of his patients one-on-one, and he said, I'm changing my practice. I'm going to do a practice where I'm going to take a lot less clients and let go of probably half the clients I have right now. I only want to do business with people who I personally like, who when they come in, I want to sit down, have a cup of tea with them, understand what's going on in their life, what their goals are, and I want to make sure that everything in my psyche is taking care of them and helping them augment the way they look, the way they feel, and their vitality and the health of their system. And he sat down and said, so to do that, I want you to know I have some simple things. I'm promising I'll give you the best dental care of your entire life. I'm promising that if you come in your appointment, you will not be delayed more than maximum of 5 minutes ever. And he laid out all these things. I'll give you the best care, the most attention. He goes, but this is what I'm going to require for patients that work with me. I'll refer them out to someone else if this is uncomfortable. He said, I require that if they cancel, they're going to have to pay for it. I require they show up on time because I'm going to respect them, they respect me. I'm going to also require that in the next 6 months, that if I do the quality work I promised, they'll give me 2 referrals from 2 other quality people that I'd probably want to take care of as well. And he said, I'm shutting down any other form of my business, and I'm going to spend more quality time with you, and I want the referrals because I don't want to spend time marketing and selling. I want to spend time putting my attention and making your life better. He quadrupled his income and cut the time he spent doing dental work by more than 60%.
I believe that.
Just because he became an owner who owned his business instead of running around trying to please everybody and being frustrated that people are canceling and so forth.
Right.
And most of us just don't own ourselves enough, right?
When something is considered quote unquote impossible, how do you reframe it so it becomes possible in your mind? And how much of that is mindset?
Well, I think impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. When someone tells me it's impossible, I always just look at them. Anybody around me knows that they can't do that. So that's part of it. But if they didn't know me, it's your opinion. And they'll say, no, science shows. And I say, yeah, and how many times has science showed something's impossible? Now science shows it's possible. Things are impossible until somebody does it. And so I find that, most of your business people, you look at businesses and what does it take to make a business grow? It's not impossible to make a business grow. A business has been shrinking for a long time, or it's been stuck. The real problem is always, the chokehold is always the psychology and the skills of the leader. Always. And 80% of that is psychology and 20% is the mechanics. Like if you don't know how to read your financials and you're trying to fly the plane of your company, I mean, come on. If all you do is go down and you look at profit and loss and you see what it is and you have a beer, either way, you either celebrate or you get depressed, something, you're gonna be in trouble, right? But if you have the skill sets, that's one thing. But you can get any skill set if you have the psychology. And anytime a business is not growing, it is not because it's impossible. It's because they aren't innovating, and they're not innovating because they're believing it's impossible. I mean, if we all know what does it take to transform, and I always tell people it takes 3 things to create a breakthrough in anything, in your personal life, in your business, anywhere. You need a strategy. But that's not the first place you should look, and it's the first place all of us look. Me too. It's our inherent thing. You want to lose weight? Well, how do I do it? I want to grow my business? How do I do it? It's instinctive. We've been trained to think that way. But the problem is the how-to is usually not that complex. I mean, come on. 70% of America is 75% of America now is overweight. Is that because it's so complex how to be fit and strong, right? Only the 1% know the answers. They hide it from you. You have to work your ass off to not hear what it takes, right? And so I remember I went to a TED Med Center and I watched about 12 doctors, one after another, get up and do these stories about how we could just get patients to take their medications and try to figure out the whole thing. And I was just looking and going, you're all talking about strategy and you've forgotten psychology. Because strategy is wonderful. I'm a strategist. I spent my whole life figuring out strategies. As we both know, a strategy could save you a decade, right? In business, strategy could save you, it could make the difference between success and failure. But most people have strategies available, or they could get them, or you could create them. But the problem is you got a story. And your story is why it isn't working. And the story is, I've tried what? What? Everything. If you tried everything, you'd be fit, right? If you tried everything, you'd be profitable. If you tried everything, you'd be there. But people say it, I'm big boned. That's what I used to say. I'm still big boned, but I'm 38 pounds lighter than I was 25 years ago, and I've never gained it back, right? When I was big boned, that was my story. All the good ones are gone. That's why I'm not in a relationship. Or they're gay and I'm not, or I'm gay and they are, or whatever the story is. There's always a story. And what I tell people is, if you can just divorce the story of your limitation and marry the truth of your unlimited capacity, then the whole game changes.
I believe in work-life integration. I don't think and I'm not being disrespectful because I'm saying everybody has a different metaphor. I'm telling you my metaphor. I'm not making somebody wrong who's focused on balance, but to me, if you say balance, it's like, okay, let's use a teeter-totter or a seesaw. Okay, let's balance it. Now that we've done that, how long are we going to stand there balancing this thing before one of us wants to jerk this thing around just to feel alive, right? Yeah. So I really think balance is more about integration for me. It's more about how do I make sure that I feel like the areas of my life, my children, my grandchildren, my health, sports. I got 31 companies, I got 1,200 employees in 7 radically different industries. We do $5 billion a year. I mean, all these things are going on. How do I do that? Well, I believe that the way I do that is in streaks. I do streaks of unbelievable intensity work, and then I do streaks of let go and be in paradise and enjoy. And so I like running hot. I want to at the end have me climb a new mountain, but that's just me. So I'm not saying that's right for other people. I'm saying you got to find what it is. But the idea of balance for most people makes them torture themselves. And I say, for me, if it tortures you, get rid of it. And instead of talk about integration, I asked Mary Callahan Erdos, who's, if you're not familiar with her, she's probably one of, if not the smartest person in the financial world, female. She's head of JP Morgan and manages 2.3 trillion with a T, not a B, $1 trillion worth of money. One of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. Breaks all the molds on people in the financial business. There's not an ounce of manipulation in her body. I mean, just good soul. And I asked her about the balance thing. You're running the biggest bank in the world, right? Trillions of dollars. And she said, Tony, I don't believe in it. And she told me work-life balance. I started laughing. We're completing each other's sentences. She has the same philosophy. But her dad used to take her to work And he was a financial guy when she was a little girl. She used to have her brother be the secretary, and she took her dad's seat and ran the show. And she said, doing that with my dad, she goes, I loved it. I was a part of his life. I got to see that part of his life instead of coming home and me not knowing it. And she said, and that's what she's done with her kids. And at JP Morgan, she leaves and picks her kids up. And she still runs the biggest bank in the world and bills trillions of dollars. So would she say it's balanced? She'd say, no, it's not balanced, it's integrated. She knows when to move into one or the other, right? So that all the parts of her life are rich. Maybe instead of balance, it's a rich life in the areas that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Rich with your children, rich with your husband or wife, rich with your dear friends, rich with the impact that you want to have, your mission, rich in terms of successful business and or whatever your career is that you really feel a sense of meaning and enjoyment. If you're tortured by balance, trying to be balanced, like other people, I'm not balanced enough, give that shit up. Instead, enjoy yourself, enjoy your children, enjoy the time, be where you are right now. That to me is more important than trying to make everything balanced, because that gets you cerebral. It makes you evaluate things.
Yeah.
The more you evaluate, the less you can actually experience what's here right now. If you look at a business, the chokehold on the growth of any business is always the psychology and the skill set of the leader. And it's 80% psychology and 20% mechanics, meaning so many small businesses, the owner might be an incredible innovator. Maybe they write incredible code. Maybe they're a tremendous influencer, but they don't know the economic side of their business, right? And they find themselves getting in trouble because somebody's giving them financial information after the fact. They don't have true financial intelligence to make decisions, and they get caught up.
Can you give me an example of a business like that? You don't have to name names.
Yeah, no, I'll pick my own examples. I had several companies early in my career that were near bankruptcy because I would sit down and I knew how to produce products that would change people's lives. I knew how to market. I knew how to build teams of people. But what I didn't know was finance. So I'd look and say, okay, how are we doing? I go, you got a great, you got a 20% profit. You got $2 million in profit in those days, little tiny company. And I come to the end of the year, there was no cash, right? I didn't know that profit is a theory, right? And so just not having that skill, or someone might be really great in finance, but they're not any good in marketing. So sometimes it's a skill problem, but 80% of it, you can solve those skills. You can get those skills if you can change your psychology. But when you accept that, oh my God, the market's down, or oh my God, the economy in our area is down, when you allow the environment to control your psychology, you're not going to win. But also, my goal in the book is really for people to be happy and more fulfilled, because you can have a ton of money and still be miserable.
Right.
So it's really like mastering the science of achievement, but also the art of fulfillment. It's about, if you're totally successful but you're not fulfilled, then what do you have? You have nothing. You made everybody happy but yourself. That's the worst thing you got. That's Robin Williams is a beautiful man. Such a beautiful man. Killed himself, right? And he achieved everything most people ever dream of. Had a beautiful family. You've made the whole world laugh. Hundreds of million people love him, but he didn't figure out how to end the suffering. Money won't do that. Most entrepreneurs are artists in their nature. I look at 3 types of personalities. An artist is somebody that has a tremendous gift, a skill, an ability, a talent, like an athlete. Curry is in the NBA is an incredible artist. Some people, their art is sales. They can sell ice to an Eskimo. Some people, it's writing software. They're incredible. Or designing clothes. And most businesses are started by an artist who says, I can do it better. But they don't realize that as you start to try to grow a business, you're the most talented employee you have in the beginning and the cheapest one, right? Yeah. And now you have to hire other people, and they're not going to do as good a job, and it ties people into this negative effect. What I really see is the biggest mistake that these individuals make is they don't understand business. Mm-hmm. They get in because they want to do good work for their client, and most of them, as you know, 96% are gone in 10 years, and the 4% that survive, they aren't necessarily profitable. 5% of all businesses ever crack $1 million gross, not net profitability, gross. And you have 0.0006, so it's 6 out of 100,000 businesses will ever do 10 million gross. So I say to people in business, I never encourage people to get in business. I try to push them away because it's too hard. If you don't have the internal drive to make it through that psychologically, you're better partnering with somebody. You're better doing something else. I think underestimating business is the challenge. And I always say that 80% of the chokehold on the growth of any business is always the owner, the leader, and 80% of that is their psychology, and 20% is skills. Like, if you don't know how to market, you're in trouble. Most
most entrepreneurs get in trouble because they don't know how to read their financials. They don't have a clue. I didn't either. It's like you can go out on a plane on a day like today that's a decent day, and you can fly if you're a pilot with what they call visual flying rules. So you can look out around you and you can fly. You get in a storm, you better be able to read those instruments or you're going to die. And most entrepreneurs don't know how to read those instruments. They look down and they see profit and loss and they go, oh, I made a profit or I made a loss, and they have a beer either way. One to drown out the pain or the other one to celebrate, right? And profit is a theory, as you know. Accounting is a very special language, and unless you understand how to use accounting to make better decisions, until you learn how to understand and measure things in a way that gives you better decision-making capability, then you get broadsided. And, profitability, you get a lot of profit and no cash. So I think not understanding the full aspect of a business, not managing your own psychology, and not knowing your numbers would be three critical things that I think sabotage most businesses. You can't have a standard education and expect to have an extraordinary life. It's not going to happen. The one breakthrough for all leaders is constant, never-ending improvement. And that means educating yourself and continuing to develop even greater emotional mastery, because that's what affects whether you execute or not. The opportunity for self-education is there. We have to change our psychology from, I'm going to do what everybody else does, and I'm mad because it doesn't work anymore, to the reality is this is the greatest time to be alive if you're growing, you're learning, you're educating, and you're developing valuable skills. Instead of complaining, you got to say, where are the skill sets valued in the marketplace? And how do I work harder on myself than anything else? Because if I become more valuable, then I will be able to give more, do more, and change more. When I interviewed Warren Buffett, I asked the most important investment he ever made in his life. You know what he said it was? I was thinking all the companies he'd done, He said, Tony, going to Dale Carnegie. I said, what? He goes, because by developing myself, that's the most important investment. Those skill sets, learning how to persuade, learning how to speak, learning how to influence, all my ideas would have died on my lips if I hadn't been able to influence. And I learned it from that little course. Most valuable thing I ever did in my life, he said. Physically stress my body to extremes because I've developed a process to take people and help them change in a weekend. But my idea of a weekend is 50 hours. And most people want set for a 3-hour movie. So, that somebody spent $300 million on, and I got 12,000 people in a stadium. I got back from last night up in San Jose. We had 4 days and nights like this. And we actually had a halter on me and a group of researchers that work with Olympic athletes, and I burned 9,500 calories in one day in 9 hours. The battery died before I finished. I went 12 hours. I burned enough calories for 2 marathons. My jumps, because I'm jumping constantly, was the equivalent of 2 NBA games. My lactate, as you all know, at 1 is hard to talk. It was 14, and I was still going strong at 12 hours. So there's some physical stress because I'm a believer that talking is bull. That you got to go deep. You got to get people to experience things. I think a belief is a poor substitute for an experience. And if I get someone to experience changing something, if I can do it in a really potent way where they really feel it, then, if you do that over and again, you start to get someone to actually be trained to get a new result. It's not about belief. Belief is important. It's not about confidence. I heard that kind of description. It's never been what's about. It's strategy. But if you don't have the certainty, you're not going to execute. So I think I've spent a lifetime accumulating patterns. There are patterns we all have. There are patterns that make you angry, patterns that make you sad, patterns that make you excited, patterns that make you grateful, patterns in health, as you well know. So like all of you who are the best at what you do, I'm massively into pattern recognition, pattern utilization, and pattern creation. And those things help me to create changes that wouldn't have happened before.
If you want another amazing Tony Robbins clip, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I took that pattern and figured out a strategy, and he proved it worked in the Midwest of the United States with blue-collar workers who'd never saved a dime.
Planning will come. It is important, but it's not your first step.